The new college football playoff rankings have been released. They came out yesterday, last night, and I have some thoughts on this. At the moment, the way it's set up, the top four teams are all conference champions, right?
Not at the moment. That's how it will be.
Presumed conference champions.
That's how it will be. When this thing ends, top four conference champions will all be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. So we have Boise State, Oregon, Miami, and Texas. There's a chance, I guess, all those teams don't win their conference.
Yeah. And then whoever wins their conference will be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. So that's got to get sorted out. And then the other teams that are at-large bids, basically. And this is going after Georgia beat Tennessee last week. Tennessee is actually one of the first teams out of this group of 12 now that's left. Georgia's in there at number 11. Penn State's ahead of Georgia. Indiana's ahead of Georgia. Indiana's ahead of Alabama. Penn State's ahead of Alabama. BYU is still in there.
Conference champion.
Conference champion, even though they lost last week.
Yeah.
And
right now they lead the Big 12, so they might not be conference champ when
could
it's all
end up
said
being
and done.
Colorado.
Right.
Yeah, there's some other teams that are still in the mix there too. And I don't really have a lot of faith in BYU winning out this thing.
I don't either.
And being a conference champion. But at the moment, that's how it is. So lots of questions. I saw a lot of people on the Twitter last night from my SEC followings. People I went to Georgia, clearly. There's a lot of talk about why is Texas ranked ahead of Georgia?
Because right now they'd be the SEC champ.
But they lost to Georgia.
They'd be the SEC champ. And the way that it sets up, if you're the champion of the conference, you get the buys. You get to be at ranked 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Well, the college football playoff chairman, Ward Manuel, who is, by the way, the athletic director at
Michigan. Yeah.
Michigan.
Shout out Ward.
Said that as the committees analyze the body of work of Texas versus where Georgia is with 2 losses, even they were both top 25 teams, we came out Texas was still a very strong team deserving of the 3 seed. So Texas' body of work, as they're saying, is what does it.
That's just tell us.
They don't have a body.
They don't have a body of work. Tell us the truth. Say right now, Texas
they
has
played one really good team and they lost.
Right now, Texas has 1 loss in the SEC. If the season ended today, they would be SEC champion, and we've got to pick the champions 1, 2, 3, or 4. Like, tell us the truth. Yeah. If Texas loses either to Texas A&M or in the SEC
championship,
I don't think Texas gets in.
I don't know. Well, so I don't know if you saw Lane Kiffin yesterday was talking about it. Like SEC.
Where's Ole Miss at?
They're right behind Tennessee, I think, or right above Tennessee. They're both right
10.
there on the edge.
Ole Miss is 10.
But they get out because BYU gets in, basically.
Ole Miss is in.
Oh, where are they right there? I don't see them on the. I see. Yeah, they play Indiana. Lane Kiffin pointed out he was like, I don't want to speak for other coaches. He goes, but I've been talking to other coaches. Nobody wants to play in the SEC championship game because if you lose, then you get another loss. Last year, Georgia was undefeated, went to the SEC championship game, lost by 3 points, and got knocked out of the playoff. That was the only loss they had all season was that one game. So all these other teams are like, look, we've lost. Everybody's lost at least a game. Some of these teams are going to have 2 losses. It could be your 3rd loss if you lose in the SEC championship game. And the college football playoff, like, they'll probably knock you out. Like, they've been saying, like, oh, we're going over body of work. We're looking at all these other things. Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, came out and was like, I think they're going to value the opportunity these teams had, the place they put themselves in. They won't count the loss against them because it's a championship game and da-da-da-da-da. Well, yeah, right. Well, they did it last year. Like, I think they'll do it again this year, and they're going to knock somebody out.
And it's not about your individual school or your individual school's conference. It's about the whole landscape of college football. So going back to last year, Georgia had to be left out. They lost to Alabama in the championship game, and Alabama lost to Texas, right? So you have to put Texas in, and then what do you do from there?
What do you do with Indiana?
If Indiana loses, they're out.
They play Ohio State this weekend.
If Indiana loses, they're out. Indiana has played.
There's 134 teams in college in FBS football. Indiana's schedule is the 106th.
I'm surprised it's only 106 because they got to play Ohio State and they played Illinois, right? Like Indiana has played Nobody.
You know how many power conference
Western
teams?
Illinois. They don't even have an extra FBS game, right? Like Penn State's schedule isn't great, but they did schedule West Virginia.
That's the thing. Georgia played Clemson.
Georgia played Clemson.
And Georgia plays Georgia Tech.
Georgia will play Georgia Tech, right? So Georgia will be sitting there with
Georgia
11, with 10.
They have the number one strength of schedule in the country.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Georgia will sit there with 10 Power 5 games. So that you will factor that in when it's all said and done.
But they're not.
They will when it's all said
Georgia's
and done.
number 11.
They hadn't played 10 Power 5
they played 9
games. They played 9 and they've got 2 losses, right? The extra win will help. And Georgia is in also. Where should Georgia be?
I think they should at least have a shot at having one of these home games, or I'd be higher than 11. I think they're in a good spot right now, man. You give me Kirby Smart with 3 weeks to prepare against a James Franklin team, I'll take that any day.
So you think Georgia, because of the win on the road against Texas, should be ahead of should have a home game? So be 5, 6, 7. So
sure.
So who's 7 right now? Indiana. So they would effectively push Indiana back.
Well, we'll see what happens if Indiana loses. Also, I was looking at strength of schedule, this stuff. Of all the power conference teams, Indiana has the easiest schedule of all of them.
Yeah.
Every team in college football.
Yeah.
Who are the teams you would not want to play out of all these teams? Like, if I'm Georgia, I'm cool getting Penn State, Miami. Like, I would not want to play Alabama. I would probably not want to play Ohio State. And maybe even Ole Miss. They're kind of the hot team right now. They're playing well. They beat Georgia 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, if I'm Georgia, I absolutely don't want to play.
No,
Ole
I'd
Miss.
like to play. I think you get another shot at it.
But Lang, for me, man, would
you be afraid
Oregon.
of playing Boise State?
I would play all of them but Oregon.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only
I'm not
one.
Even that scared of Oregon.
Yeah, like
Dylan Gabriel doesn't really strike fear in me.
This thing is wide open right now, where if you told me pick one of these teams and say, hey, this team is going to be national champion. One of these 12 teams up here is going to be national champion. Only BYU, Boise State, and Indiana would surprise me. Right?
Notre Dame would surprise me.
I could see everybody else winning a championship. Notre Dame's got a big matchup against Army. The interesting thing about this Notre Dame team is there's no way for Notre Dame to be top 4. So even if they didn't have the loss in Northern Illinois, they don't play in the conference. They wouldn't get a conference championship. So they'd have to be 5. And that Northern Illinois loss looks worse by the day.
They lost last night to somebody. I was watching that game on ESPN when I got home.
If Notre Dame loses another one, they're out. They've got Army, and they end the season with USC.
Yeah.
Right? So they shouldn't lose another one. But if they do, they're out.
Army's a good game for them. I mean,
yeah.
Notre Dame's a 2-touchdown favorite, but Army, their quarterback's back. Army and Navy were the 2 teams that we were betting on every week on the odds couple because they were covering week after week.
Still are. I still am with
Navy
Army.
fell off a little bit. Army's still
on
it. Like, Army's still good. I think Army's going to cover that game this week, but I think Army's going to at least give them a game. And look, we've seen Notre Dame time after time through the years screw up. Lose a game they're not supposed to lose, and so I would not be shocked if they lose one of these.
I mean, the games that under Freeman, the games that they lose are like that second game of the year to Northern Illinois or to Marshall, and then after that, for whatever reason, they're back fine. So that's interesting. I'm curious to know. Notre Dame ends up being ending the year with 2 more wins. They only have the 1 loss to Northern Illinois. They'd have the win on the road at Texas A&M. They'd have the win over Navy, the win over Army, which would all be impressive wins at the time, and maybe the win over Louisville, although Louisville fell apart against Stanford, which was ridiculous. So they might have 4 of those quality wins. I'm curious to know if Notre Dame ends up jumping up to that 5 spot ahead of Ohio State. If Ohio State goes out, plays Oregon again in a Big Ten rematch and falls.
Darnell in the chat asked, who would I put Georgia over in the rankings?
I asked.
I'd put them over Penn State. Who's Penn State beating?
So you'd put 2-loss Georgia over 1-loss Penn State.
Oh yeah,
because
I'd put them
Georgia,
over Indiana too.
Because Georgia beat Texas, who you're saying shouldn't be.
Georgia beat
3.
Clemson. Georgia beat Texas.
Okay.
Georgia beat
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Okay.
Like they've got a couple of matches. Games against top. You can't. There's also the argument about you can't say that they beat a ranked team. I've seen that argument this week too because teams are ranked at the start of the season and then they suck.
We're taking it all
but for the most part,
from a snapshot of
right
now. From right now,
I would take
the way things sit. You will change your mind towards when the season ends and we get the final ranking because that's what actually matters.
Yeah.
But
But this shows you what they're thinking. It doesn't matter.
They'll do whatever they want to do. They showed you what they were thinking last year when they had Georgia wasn't that 1-2 or 1-3 Georgia Alabama, and then they just moved Georgia out. Right?
Georgia went from 1 to 6.
They'll make up the rules to fit the people in who they want to put in. Like that's fine. So and listen, I don't have an argument. Georgia's strength of schedule has been really, really good, and this is and I think everybody, I wish they would all play schedules like this. Give me 10 games at least versus Power 5 teams if you're going to do a playoff like this. And I want the teams who do that to be rewarded. So sorry, Indiana, that win over Western Illinois, I don't care about that. That's not a power team. That's not FBS team. So you've got a really weak out of conference, and then because of the way that the schedule shook out for you, you managed to avoid everybody worth a damn in the Big Ten but Illinois up to this point. So, yeah, if Indiana loses, Indiana should absolutely fall out. If Texas loses, Texas should fall out.
If Indiana falls out, do you put Tennessee in?
Yeah.
So you go 3 Big Ten teams, 5 SEC.
Yeah.
I actually just looked at Georgia's schedule for next year. I think they've learned their lesson. They open with Marshall, then they play Austin Peay.
We can't.
Florida, the Charlotte 49ers.
Yeah, we can't allow these to be the schedule. SEC needs to go to 9 conference games, and they need to make it to where you have to play at least one FBS Power 5.
Georgia does play Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas, and Tennessee next year too. So
four
top 20 teams,
while
top 15 teams.
While that is all well and good, that Austin Peay game is a joke. That Charlotte game is terrible.
I mean, Georgia plays UMass this week. They have those games where they play crummy teams.
Get you one. Fine.
I went to the Georgia Tennessee Tech game back in September. Like they played Clemson, then they played a bad team.
Yeah,
you know?
come on, man. No, but to the Georgia point of it, you would have wins in a fictitious scenario.
Yeah,
potentially. I still think Clemson has a shot to get to the ACC title game. Don't they? Is that thing set? Either way it goes, you'd have wins over Clemson.
Yeah.
You'd have wins over Tennessee.
Texas.
You'd have wins over Texas at Texas.
Yeah.
Clemson neutral site, Tennessee at home, at Texas, with your losses being to Alabama, who's
you lost to Alabama by 3
in.
at Alabama. Then you got beat by Ole Miss pretty good.
So, I think Georgia is, as long as they don't mess around and lose to Georgia Tech, I think they're fine. I don't know what the tiebreaker scenario looks like for the SEC with all of those 2-loss teams, but right now I think Georgia is fine. I wish Indiana all the best.
Indiana didn't play Illinois, by the way.
Who they play? They did play Illinois.
I'm looking right now.
Okay.
Darnell says they didn't.
Okay.
No, they beat Michigan.
Nobody.
They beat Michigan State.
Nobody.
Washington.
Nobody.
Nebraska.
Nobody.
Northwestern.
Nobody.
Maryland.
Nobody.
Charlotte.
Nobody.
UCLA, Western Illinois, Florida International.
Yeah, that's not. If they didn't play Illinois, then that's not even a good schedule.
Yeah.
That makes that schedule all the worse, which means the loss of Ohio State. I don't care if you win the season 11-1 in the Big Ten if you're Indiana. If there is a team out there, you have no quality wins, right? Like, how many of those teams are bowl eligible right now? Washington? Nobody in the outer conference is bowl eligible. Washington is right now.
Not UCLA.
Michigan might get bowl eligible this weekend. They play Northwestern, who might also get bowl eligible this weekend. I'm not sure if
Nebraska's
Maryland,
5-2.
I'm not sure 5-2 in conference
overall.
Yeah. So
they're almost bowl eligible.
Okay, but that's
they're not 5. They can't be 5-2.
They're 5-5.
Yeah,
they're 5-5.
They were 5-2 when they played.
Almost bowl eligible ain't bowl eligible, right? So right now, when we take the snapshot, Nebraska's not bowl eligible. Wisconsin, I don't think is bowl eligible.
Wisconsin's 5-5.
Michigan's not bowl eligible. Northwestern's not bowl eligible. Maryland's not bowl eligible.
4-6. A bunch of 500 teams.
So you're talking about a resume that has nobody good on it versus a team with a resume with 3 good wins.
I think you could say, look, Indiana's had a fun season. Great. It's been an awesome story. Kurt Cignetti's awesome. He has funny quotes in the press conferences. He's glib. They're a great story. Are they the 7th best team in college football this year?
Record-wise, yeah, but are they?
No, just looking at them.
No. Looking at them, they absolutely are. Looking at them, they might be 4th or 5th.
No.
Yeah, no. Watching Indiana play, they beat the hell out of these
teams.
Yeah,
but they play these crappy teams. That's what I'm saying.
Listen,
looking at who they've played, looking at them.
So looking at the entire body of work.
At everything.
All right.
Us looking at it from the outside, we're like, okay, you're not the 7th best team in college football. Is Penn State the 8th best team? I don't think so.
Oh. Yeah,
I think a lot of these teams, you look at it and you're like, all right, okay. But the college football committee, it all goes back to my long-held theory that committees are the devil. Just in general. Committees are what you do when you can't decide something.
So who should decide this?
Just a person. Let's get a
Just
czar.
one person?
A college football czar. Just get one guy inside. Take us to the BCS.
Oh, good Lord.
How about a computer?
No.
This could be part of Elon's government efficiency project.
We did the computer.
We don't need a committee doing this.
We did the computer thing. We didn't like the computer either.
We need a new computer, a supercomputer.
Remember when the computer left LSU out and we were mad about it?
The AI computer in Memphis they're building.
Yeah,
That's what it could be. It's a top secret project for the college football rankings. And it's going to give us the true champion and the true rankings as it goes along. Maybe this is something Grind City Media should come up with. You know, Fish does the fish scales.
Yep.
This could be our.
I wonder who the top 12 are in the fish scales.
That's a good point. It'd be worse than this. I know the fish scales are a disaster.
The Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m.